Hi there, welcome back. So at this point in time, we are in right around 2015. I had realized that Barb and Toshio were not going to pay me. I had been doing my taxes ever since getting out of boat school. I used to do my taxes with a paper form, and then I heard that the online tax resources, TurboTax, TaxAct, things like that, were good resources. I never had good luck with those. In fact, I had a lot of problems. I remember when I was my first year. I was at the marina, and I used TurboTax, and I had spoken with the IRS because I was claiming 9 on my. I wanted to talk about them, maybe being lenient with me in terms of charging me all these fees and penalties because of the situation I was in. I wanted to be honest with them and say I'm not deliberately doing this, and I have every intention of paying my taxes. They were unwilling to work with me. I used TurboTax and thought, well, perhaps I could. This would be a good opportunity, at least. Because in addition to the fact that I was not getting paid much, my job required me to buy tools. I had thousands of dollars worth of tools, and I was only getting paid $15 an hour. At the most, I was getting paid $10 an hour originally, and then after about a year, $11 an hour, and then for a little period of time, $13.50. But never surpassed $15 an hour. So I thought I've got to. I've got to see if I can get deductions anywhere I can, and I thought, well, I've bought tools. Let's incorporate that into my taxes. I had $3,000 worth of tools that I was claiming, and I was told by not TaxAct. I used TaxAct at one point. Not this time. This was TurboTax. The algorithm on TurboTax appraised my $3,000 worth of tools to be, I ended up calling them up while I was doing my taxes to get to the bottom of this. The $3,000 was considered to be not worth enough for a deduction. Anyway, they said the IRS considered my $3,000 worth of tools to be, they evaluated the value of it to an amount that was considered to be below a tax deductible amount. So I was angry about that, and there was nothing I could do. After being stiffed by Barb and Toshio, I had been doing my taxes through AARP. They have a tax service where accountants will do pro bono taxes for people. I had very simple self-employment taxes, and I felt better having someone do it for me, and I didn't have to pay, and I hoped that at some point they would offer me the ability to deduct something. I needed, taxes for a small business are about 30% before you incorporate deductions. And I really wanted to have that benefit. I never was able to, for whatever reason, get the benefit of that. But I was getting my taxes done. I knew they were getting done properly, and they would get submitted by these folks from AARP. Now, the year after I was not paid by Barb and Toshio. I was getting my taxes done. It was on the 15th of April. They just so happened to set my appointment for the 15th, so I was doing it on the very last day possible. Not my choice. This was AARP's choice. That was fine because they electronically filed them, or they took responsibility for filing them. They would be filed on time. So getting my taxes done, we were finalizing everything. I had been there, done the entire process, and while he was finalizing my taxes, I mentioned that I had not been paid by a client. The reason I mentioned this was because I was filing my taxes for such a small amount of money, because the majority of my income would have been from Barb and Toshio. However, I was only filing for like a few $100s or something like that for tax, a very small amount. No, it was more than a few. It was just a few thousand, though. A very small amount, something no one could live on. I said this because I didn't want any suspicion. I didn't want them to be suspicious of why I was filing for such a small amount. And then it was due to the fact that I had a client that simply hadn't paid me. This information to them resulted in them refusing to file my taxes. And that resulted in, to this day, I have not filed my taxes since then. I have been unable to file my taxes, and that resulted in my inability to participate in society. I have not been able to borrow money. I had always saved up enough money. I always had this little at one point I had about $18,000 in cash in a safe in my bedroom, which I did not touch, so that I could put a down payment on a property. And I was never able to do that because I was not able to file my taxes. That $18,000 would dwindle, and I had to rely on it heavily, and eventually I used it all in an emergency circumstance, which I'll get to. But in addition to not being able to file taxes, during the COVID lockdowns, there were stimulus checks being cut to, as far as I understand, everyone. I did not get the benefit of those stimulus checks because I had not filed my taxes. However, that wasn't for lack of trying. Every single year, I would go down to the IRS office in person, and I would get told by them that they couldn't help me, and I would go and that I needed to call. I would call the IRS office, and they would be no help whatsoever. And even though I would get turned away from the IRS office in person, I would continue to go every single year. Because what am I to do? The IRS never told me what they required of me to properly file my taxes. It was some sort of form, and I don't know what that form is, and no one was able or willing to tell me. So I didn't get any COVID funds, and I was in desperate need of assistance during that period of time. The year was 2020. It was in the summer or early fall of 2020. I developed sleep apnea. However, it was not typical sleep apnea, which is just like me to develop something atypical. But I would be unable to fall asleep. My throat would close up upon just about falling asleep, which meant that I didn't sleep at all, which was a real problem. I started just pouring through information on the internet, and I had a suspicion that it might be sleep apnea. However, given the circumstances that it was a rare form, or it manifested itself in an odd way, because usually people that have sleep apnea, as far as I'm aware, that I've learned, is they will actually be notified by a husband or wife, or someone who's sleeping near them, that they appear to be having difficulty breathing while they're sleeping. For me, I wasn't able to sleep at all. However, I did have a suspicion that it was sleep apnea. My father had sleep apnea. He had a CPAP. I hadn't slept for days. It was causing a significant amount of distress. And I'm going to get into that. I asked if I could borrow his CPAP to see if this worked, and it did. He let me borrow it. It worked. I set it up that night. I drove there at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was very distraught. I had not slept in a long time. And it had an effect, a major effect on my vertigo. Something I dealt with through childhood, but it was having a massive magnification of the psychological effect that the vertigo had on me. I was relieved that the CPAP worked. However, I could not keep that CPAP because my father desperately needed it. I made an appointment. I spoke with my doctor about it. My doctor was unwilling to prescribe me a CPAP, and he said I would need to set up an appointment with an otolaryngologist, and I did, and it took a very long time to get an appointment. It took maybe a couple months to get in there. When I was able to see this otolaryngologist, she refused. I explained the whole thing, that I was able to use a CPAP. It worked, and I understood she may want to run some tests on me, but it was very important that I get to use a CPAP because I was unable to sleep with this form of sleep apnea that was happening, and it was having a major psychological effect. I explained the history quickly to her about my vertigo, and that it was actually torturous for me. It would get orders of magnitude worse without sleep, and it was affecting me deeply psychologically. It really was torturous. That's not. I'm not being, I'm not exaggerating this. It's my worst fear. It's my absolute worst fear. And my worst fear was coming true, and it was invading my dreams. If I was able to sleep, it would be so intense that I would feel it ripping my body apart. It was such an intense, terrifying thing, and it was happening all the time. She refused to give me a CPAP. She wanted me to conduct a sleep study. I said I would, and I did. However, I said I probably won't be able to fall asleep, unfortunately, and I didn't. So the sleep study resulted no results. And she dragged her feet just looking at those results. It took her weeks just to look at the results, which probably takes 5 minutes or so. This woman had no desire to help me, and I wasn't asking. I was willing to do whatever she wanted, but I needed her to prescribe me a CPAP. And I pleaded with her, and I let her know just how important this was, that it's not just about the sleep apnea. This is triggering a very traumatic event that happened early in my childhood that I'd been dealing with, and I had really got under control, and it is just spiraling. It is making it unbearable, and all the work I've done my entire life to work on this is being undermined, and it's turning into a monster, something that is affecting my life dramatically. And she would not prescribe me a CPAP. I pled with this woman for months. I'm going to stop here and continue where I left off in the next video, just so that I can do things more concisely. I think that if I think about what I'm going to say next, I can summarize it more quickly in the next videos if I stop here. I'll see you then. Thank you.